Hi everyone, I'm Lydia and I sew things and I'm really excited to show you these. They're little bows I made for my daughter. I made them from scraps from a cute shirt that I made her recently and I thought, hey, why not? Let's make a little tutorial. They're little scrunchy bows and I'll show you how to make the scrunchy part and the bow. And it's really easy to like put a little clip on them and then, just make these cute little bowls you see on kids everywhere. But yeah, I'm gonna show you how to make them. Keep watching. Thanks. Okay, so here are the supplies that you'll need. For full details, you can check my blog out at lydiasewsthings.com. So we have our crinoline, our little rectangles of fabric, sewing supplies, pins. That down there is a little scrap, so we're going to test out our stitches, make sure everything's working okay with our fabric. And here we go. There's a bow. This is what it's going to look like. It just has a little scrunchy piece on the bottom. It's really super cute. These are your little center ties. All right, so we have everything set up here, ready to go. And I'm just going to take the little rectangles and place them right sides together. And I'm going to pin them around, and basically we're going to take them and sew around the perimeter using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. All the squares and everything I did here, I did at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. We're going to sew around the perimeter of the little rectangle and leave about an inch opening so you can flip it over later. And then what I'm doing here is just testing out my stitch. And like I said, you could do a straight stitch. You can do a very narrow zigzag. And all of that would just work fine for this. So always make sure that tread tail is nice and long. I'd say about 3-4 inches in length, because when you put the needle up, it has a tendency to escape the needle, so to speak. That does happen to me sometimes. And then always when you turn these corners, make sure your needle is down, and that'll give you a nice little turn. And you'll see we're going to clip our corners here in a minute. It'll make just everything super easy. So needle down and turn, and just sew around the perimeter here. And then you'll see your little opening. I did do about an inch. If you need a little bit of more space, you can totally do that. But then I just back stitch, and then I just, yeah, that's it. So now what we're going to do is flip it over. So here I flipped it over, and I was going to my corners to kind of point them out a little bit. And what I realized is that I forgot to clip my corners. So you see what happens if you don't clip your corners. You get kind of angled edges instead of nice sharp turns. So I'm going to go ahead and clip them here. Yeah, so you just clip, and you just do that to all 4 of your corners. And then what you're going to do is flip it over, and then you're going to get nice pointy edges on those corners of your bow. So now I'm flipping it over here so you can do that. And at this point, you give it a nice little press, or if you don't feel like pressing, you can totally just skip that. See, there we go. So the next step is just to put the crinoline in there. So what I did is I folded it in half to give myself a little bit of a guideline, and I did little pleats on the crinoline. So this is going to give it the nice little structure and bow shape when we place them inside of our little bow. So again, they're just 1/4 inch pleats. And this makes it really easy to do. You're just going to do a nice, simple, straight stitch down the center. So you do your straight stitch, back tack a little bit, and then make sure you remove the pins. Make sure you remove your pins, and back tack, trim your thread, and there's your little bow. It gives it a really nice structure and gives you the ability to use pretty much any fabric that you have laying around, any scraps that you may have. You could also use tulle. I haven't tried it yet, but you could use tulle, just use more layers. The crinoline is pretty stiff, so one's enough. In fact, what inspired me to use this is the fact that I had just been working on my draping final. And it was this 80s inspired pink gown, and it's on my blog, lydiasewsthings.com, and there's pictures on IG too if you want to take a look. But it just was so pretty, and I had all these scraps laying around, and I was also working on this sweater for my daughter. So I thought, oh my gosh, it would be so cute to make matching bows. So I just went for it and then came up with this. And what I'm doing here is that little opening we left. I'm just going to sew it shut, and I did choose to hand sew it. I just do find hand sewing relaxing. If you want to just use a straight stitch and not do the hand sewing, that's totally fine. But if you do want to see more hand sewing, just drop me a comment and I can definitely work on that. I think I like hand sewing so much because that's one of the first things I learned how to do, or my mom taught me how to do some hand stitching and embroidery work when I was just a little kid. Okay, so I clipped that, and now I'm just fussing with the bow a little bit. So I'm just kind of pleating it, getting it to kind of look, or basically just how I want it to look. And then I put some pins to kind of hold my pleats down. And then this is the center tie. The center tie, you just sew right sides together, and you can use any one of your stitches. If you have a serger, you can totally just serge it also. Yeah, so then you give it a nice little tight tie in the back. And then you make your knot, take out your pins. And these bows are so cute. What I would do next is put these on some little clips and make hair clips. You can hot glue those. You can also put this on a headband. That would be so cute on a headband. You can really do anything with these little bows, and add them as a little embellishment on some dresses for your kids too. Okay, so now we're moving on to the little scrunchie part here. So I take that piece and put it right sides together, and I'm going to sew the long side down, and I used the straight stretch stitch on the machine for this. And now I'm going to take my loop turner. This is, oh my gosh, one of my favorite tools ever. Once I learned how to use this, I never looked back. No pencils, no chopsticks, no bobby pins, safety pins. I tried it all, you guys. This is the best. So see how fast I just turned that? Okay, so this is my other second favorite tool, is a bodkin, and I just use this for my elastic. And I did find that the 3/8 inch elastic worked the best for this. I did have some 1/2 inch lying around, but this one just worked out better. Okay, so that's a little trick I use there with the safety pins holding it down for me on the other end, because that's the worst when you're pulling the elastic and then it just falls out. So bring it all together, make sure it's not twisted, and I'm just going to sew back and forth, straight stitch. There's no reason, you really don't need to have the whole thing's stretchy. Just use a straight stitch. It'll give you the least amount of a hassle with the little narrowness of the elastic. And I'm just trimming all that, those tails there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I am going to take one end, fold it in on itself, okay? fold it in. It was maybe about 1/4 inch. I folded it in. And then I'm going to take the other end and put it inside of the other end, just like that. So that hides all your raw edges. And then just do a little straight stitch down the center. And that's it. So you could totally just use these scrunchies on their own too. So just a straight stitch back and forth. Oh, and that's a cool trick I do too. I just turn it because sometimes these things are so narrow that the machines don't always like that. So I just turn it, leave the needle down, turn it over, and just sew back down on the scrunchie. So there you go. It's a scrunchie. And now we're gonna attach the bow to the scrunchie part. Okay, so again, I like to do my hand sewing, and this right here is beeswax. You run your thread through it and it makes the thread thicker and also stops it from tangling so much, because that can be frustrating too when you're hand sewing and it keeps tangling on itself. So if you haven't given that a try, I definitely recommend it. And what I'm doing here is sewing or securing the little knot down. Nothing fancy, just a very basic hand sewing stitch. And I do this all around that knot because we're going to end up just hiding all of this with the scrunchie portion. So again, I'm just taking my thread and securing that little knotted portion of the center tie to the bow so that I can trim off the excess of the center tie. And then I'm going to attach this, and then I'm finishing off my threading with some knots. All right, and then I just when I'm done with this, basically what I'm going to do is get the scrunchie portion. Yeah, see, that's all nice and secure. Here's my scrunchie portion, and I'm going to go ahead and attach the center part of it to the bottom of the bow, so that seam that you made on the scrunchie will just be right at the center of the bow. And it'll give it a nice little finish there too. So I'm just sewing that on. And you know, one piece of advice whenever you're hand stitching is to use matching thread, because it'll be very forgiving when you do all of your stitches. There we go. So I'm securing one side of it, and then I'm sewing down the center of the other side. And basically I'm sewing in another little square or rectangular shape here. Yeah, so then I'm going to go down and do kind of like a stabbing stitch there, right? Through the elastic, through the bow. Maybe I'll grab a little bit of crinoline. These bows aren't going anywhere. They're going to stay on that scrunchie. So I guess this part you could hot glue it, but it's going to be more secure and it'll last longer and help you release some stress when you're hand sewing, right? There you go. So I do all my knots, and then I like to hide the thread inside too. So I'll leave a little longer tail. You see, I just travel a little bit inside. Boop, boop. And there you go. Your little bow is all done. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.